Be inspired, be empowered, be knowledgeable. Know the facts from the fiction, know the truth. We're here to educate people and differentiate the wheat from the chaff. Share the truth so that they can make money. You only make money when you know what the truth is. These are all entrepreneurs with skin in the game. I don't want to ask them the easy questions. I push the envelope. I'm very controversial. What do you think the local governments would react seeing this outside force coming and destabilizing everything and eating their lunch?
Let's just put it this way.
I have to think about that too.
Sure, you know? And I'll explain that.
I really want to piss them off to the point whereby they're really going to address these questions. And sometimes we have arguments and sometimes we have fights, but that's fine. The more controversial it is, the better it is.
I think there's two sides to the topic.
Not every state, it is mandatory to have battery storage.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory. You're absolutely right. It's not mandatory.
Stop this. This is getting heated, it's good.
It's a real boardroom.
Hey, you said to get heated, I'll get heated. I like it.
What I hope to achieve is to create an army of very well educated, very well informed people who can make real strategic decisions. The right attitude wins. Wealth creation wins. Wake up, make some real dough for your family, for your community, to take back this great country. Welcome, folks, to our third event of the year. My name is Ziad Abdelnour. I'm chairman and founder of the Financial Policy Council and president and CEO of Black Hawk Partners. Real great to have you all in here. I see lots of new faces here. Great. Let me tell you a bit about the Financial Policy Council, what we are, what we stand for, then we can start this great event. We've been in business since July 2010, so soon we're going to be celebrating our 10th year anniversary. Yep. We have done so far around 53 events over the last 10 years, covering every single asset class you can imagine. We have over 250,000 followers on social media. And we like to make a difference. We're not afraid of pissing off people. We are seeking the truth. That's all what matters. No fake information, no fake news, the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. We're here to find solutions. We're not here to get frustrated, blame this party or that party. We're neither Republicans nor Democrats. We're capitalists. We're entrepreneurs. We're wealth creators. And that's all what we're about. And this is not academia. We're not here to teach you about academia. We're here to create wealth, to gather intelligence better than anyone, to inform you, empower you, for the sake of creating wealth. Make no mistake about it. Money is about freedom. That's the most important element. It's not about acquiring things. It's not about flaunting things. It's about freedom. The more money you acquire, the freer you become, where you can say whatever you want, whenever you want, without being afraid of the consequences. We're here to empower entrepreneurs. We're here to help our members and supporters create wealth. We're here to create a support group second to none. This is really what it's all about. We're fiercely independent. We're not bankrolled by any PAC, any organization, and we intend to remain so. I'd like to thank first the board members who have sponsored this event and who have been incredibly supportive throughout the years. I'd like the board members to stand up for a big applause. I would like to thank our 42 sponsors so far, too long to name each one of them, and particularly our current sponsors, Triton Solar and Computronics. We have a great group of panelists today, and let me tell you the difference between the panelists we bring in and the panelists you listen to at other nonprofit organizations. Most of the panelists we have, most of the entrepreneurs we bring, are people with skin in the game, who have been in the trenches, who create their own companies, their own wealth. These are not corporate slaves to corporate America. I don't want to hear about any economist, professor, banker talking about wealth creation because they have no clue how to create wealth. They pontificate. They tell you what you should do, what you should not do. It's not a Harvard professor who makes $300,000 a year who's going to teach me how to make money where I can make this money in a day. I'm not bragging about it. It's the truth. So without further delays, please meet our 4 panelists, all super successful individuals in their own right, ranging across the spectrum. Mr. Upendra Shivakula, who is the Commissioner of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. Mr. Harry Epanapali, who is Chairman of the CIC Group. Mr. Elliot Lehman, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Computronics. And Mr. Himanshu Patel, Chairman and Founder of Triton Solar. And so this is how it works. I'm going to go and ask the panel a bunch of questions, which they're going to address and debate. Then I'll leave it up to you, the audience, to ask them the questions you want. So it's very interactive. We're not here for you to sit down and get bored and start yawning. It's very interactive between the panel, yourself, and myself. This is, any questions you can ask. There's no stupid question. And the more controversial you can be, the better. I want to see some fire here. So let's do first things first. Asking the panelists, could you please share, each one of you, in no more than a couple of minutes, your personal and professional background? I would rather listen to the horse's mouth than, talk about your background, starting with Himanshu.
Hi guys, I'm Himanshu, CEO of Triton Solar. So we produce anything that's related to renewable energy products and dealing with nanotechnology. So what we talk about nanotechnology means anybody who doesn't know what nanomolecule is in this room, it's actually a product or a molecule that's the size of your blood cell or smaller. So take an example, we are the founders of OLED technology, which is, you see the LG TVs, very thin TVs that you see out there. Actually, the light bulb is smaller than your blood cell. So you can only imagine what nanomolecular size means and then how small it gets. It's the size of your blood cell, right? You can't really see it. It's just a liquid form. We produce our batteries, our solar panels, and our lights using the same molecule. So we take the oldest technology and bringing the newest products in the industry. The oldest technology is we use screen printing machines. So those who know anything about printing, silk screen printing is the oldest technology of printing. You can do it by hand, you can do it by machines. They now have machines that do it. In some products we use roll-to-roll, and some of the ways we do our printed light is by large-scale machines. So we produce it in the U.S., but we are still being able to compete with the guys that make it in China. And the reason is because we're able to reduce our cost of high intensity of labor and using guys who have little skills to none in the industry, but being able to know how to use screen printing machines. Normally, a screen printing person who uses a screen printing machine doesn't get paid $90,000 to $100,000 or $200,000 a year. They make $50,000 to $60,000 a year, and that's how we're able to reduce our costs and still be in business in the United States and allowing to use nanotechnology. So by also using nanotechnology, we're able to make our products like our batteries 6 times smaller than Tesla, 3 times lighter than Tesla, longer life than Tesla, or any lot of other competitors out there. Our batteries that are 10 kilowatts that can run a home is in the form of 24-inch by 12-inch by 4.5-inch. So it's like a small little suitcase that can run your house or store enough energy to run your house.
Thank you, Himanshu. Elliot?
Yes, I'm Elliot Lehman, Chief Technology Officer of Computronics. I'm one of the original founders with Barry Monet, who's also one of the
Board members
board
of
members
FPC.
of the FPC. And we've been doing this for a little over 22 years now. We mostly specialize in regulated industries, so legal, medical, and financial clients. So we build, manage, and secure the networks that the world runs on. So the largest hedge funds that are trading on networks that we built. And I brought some statistics with me, just to give you an example. Cisco is projecting the global cloud data center traffic to reach 19.5 zettabytes by 2021. So this is a exploding industry, even from the early days of the 90s in the World Wide Web, and it continues to explode now. And every business in the world is running on some sort of network that needs management, that needs security. So we are a little more behind the scenes, you could say, but we are building the networks that make the products deliverable in this world.
Thank you. Upendra?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad and Finance Policy Council for inviting me today. Being a state regulator, I just want to make a disclosure. Whatever comments I'm going to make are my own. They don't reflect the views of the Board of Public Utilities in New Jersey. Having said that, now I can talk freely. I have been a regulator as a commissioner on the Board of Public Utilities in New Jersey for a little over 4 years. And what we do there is looking at energy space, water space, wastewater space, telecom, and cable. We look at all those industries. These are all monopolies. We come up with, oversee their rate-making process, provide customer service. And so right now it's quite exciting in that Governor Murphy got elected almost more than a year ago. And so we have a great clean energy agenda that we are really implementing. We are coming up with energy master plan. We're looking at solar, offshore wind, storage, and energy efficiency, and trying to make a big difference addressing the issue of climate change, how we can move from fossil-based generation to non-fossil-based generation. I think that's a major effort it's been undertaken. Prior to that, I was a state legislator serving the Assembly, was a deputy speaker, and I was the chair of the Assembly Telecom and Utilities Committee, where I wrote several legislation, solar legislation, then offshore wind legislation, energy efficiency legislation, also carbon cap and trade program, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative program. So several things I have done, and I'm really excited to be here today to talk about storage.
Thank you very much. Harry?
Yes, my name is Hari Panapalli. I'm the chairman of the board for the CIC Group. It's a private equity fund. We are focusing on health, education, and energy. And today, I'm very much interested in focusing discussion on the energy storage technology. So our primary focus is to if a company or has a service or a product in a domestic market and that's doing some revenue generation and they don't know their potential to go global, so we help them to create the roadmap and milestones and work with them to achieve those milestones. If funding is needed or advisory is needed, whatever is needed, we handhold these companies to take their product or service to the global markets. That's what we do.
Thank you, Harry. Okay, for all the people who don't know what storage technology really means, I'm sure some of you don't even know that. So please, 1 minute each, if you could please share briefly with the audience, what does storage technology really mean? And what are the major challenges, opportunities, and leading technologies in the sector as well? Starting with Himanshu.
So when you say storage technologies, when we say what storage technologies means, there are a couple of form factors, right? If you look at it as right now, currently, we generate power constantly whenever we need the power, right? So if it's 24 hours, that means we're constantly generating power. We're not storing any power anywhere. We're just generating it as we need it. And that also has a lot of backflaws, meaning if you're running a coal mine, a coal plant, you're constantly burning coal, even if you're not using that energy. So now with the storage energy, if you can store that energy, which has always been the challenge of the world, right? When they say that, our grandfathers used to be able to ride a bicycle and generate energy, clean energy. Why that wasn't efficient? Why don't we continue doing that today? It's because you can't store the energy. The minute you stop riding the bicycle, it's not going to work anymore. But now we can actually store the energy in a battery or any size of like a large format of energy in a small footprint. Now, when we can do that, that's going to change how your house operates or your commercial building operates or a city or microgrids. There's a lot of microgrids going in that you're probably not even familiar with. What we say microgrids means when power does go out, those microgrids take over and they give you power where there's critical power that's required. So very soon you will start seeing, and it's already started, you'll see that people are buying whole house generators, now they're not buying them and they're buying batteries. So when the power goes out, you don't have that noisy sound where you can't sleep, you don't have any pollution, and you don't have no maintenance. So you have a battery that just quietly runs your house and all the other neighbors are running with diesel fuel cells, right? So a lot of people are going towards that direction on one section. The other part of it is that if you have solar panels, you can generate power. People think, okay, yeah, I can put solar panels in my house and when the power goes out, I'll still have power in the daytime. It's not true. It's actually regulated where you cannot have power. The minute that you lose power, the grid, that means you cannot use that solar panels because those solar panels are hooked up on something called the reverse metering. So you really don't use the power unless it goes back to the grid. Am I correct? In the state of New Jersey? And it said in the state of New Jersey, it's reverse metering for solar panels, right? Yeah. So basically what happens, guys, is that when you generate that power, you're sending it back to the electric company, and then you're getting it back. So if the power is cut off, and if there's somebody trying to fix that power line, and you're generating power and you're sending it back, there's a problem, right? That guy gets electrocuted. So, and not only that, but that's why they shut off the grid. So that's why you can't use that power. But if you use a battery, now you can because you're actually generating and storing your own energy, and you don't actually send it back to the grid. That's the difference.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Elliot.
Okay, so my area of storage is more...
So we're talking about the definition and the leading challenges facing the industry.
So my area of storage is more in data storage because I'm more in the technology field. So how many people in this room do you think have a smartphone on them?
We all do.
How many people email, tweet, wink, post, buy things on Amazon? Every single thing you do in your life at this point is done on technology, and that has to be stored somewhere, right? So what we're talking about now in this industry is big data because there's so much data flowing in from all these points that somebody has to warehouse all this. And it's not going to be a bunch of companies that are just feeding hard drives into a machine. It's going to be companies that are reaching out into this zettabyte, petabyte range that can store massive amounts of data for pennies on the dollar. So what you'll see in the market is not only the people that are putting out these technologies, just like in the power industry, you'll have Tesla as one of the well-known brands, but you'll see all of the manufacturers and all of the raw materials that are used for these storage, because storage is not necessarily spinning magnetic media anymore. That's all going away. And we're starting to move more towards solid state, which is chips on a stick or on a IC board. And that is what's storing your future, the pictures of your kids, your bank account is being stored on these kinds of mediums. But there is so much demand and so little supply that the industry is going to gradually change to a point where there's not going to be enough supply in raw materials alone to build the storage that we're going to need eventually.
As a regulator, I'm sure you have a different perspective.
Yeah, I think, when you look at storage, electricity, this is the context, is electricity. Electricity, either use it or lose it. So there is, so how do you make sure that electricity available all the time? So nighttime, the load is less and the price of electricity is a lot lower, and the daytime, the price is very high. And there are many technologies for storing electricity. I mean, some of them are old, some of them are relatively coming up very fast. For example, I don't know how many of you heard about pumped water storage. You could have water, take the water, you pump it up, store it at a higher level using the gravitational force. You can generate electricity. That is one. There is one facility like that in New Jersey. Then you have flywheel storage. You have a flywheel operating, you can store it like that. There are also technologies where you can use the cheap electricity at nighttime, create blocks of ice, and then they use that ice for use. That's another type of form. But we are going to be talking more about storage, I think Himanshu's thought, in terms of lithium-ion batteries. And that is the really growing at a very rapid rate. And when you would not believe that by 2024, there's going to be about 4.4 gigawatts. I mean, you're talking about 10 to the power, technology. So it's a lot of storage. And the market for storage is going to be about $4.7 billion, and it's really fast growing. Why is that? Because many other states have taken on what is called renewable portfolio standard. They're trying to create portfolios that include non-fossil generation, not coal, not natural gas, using sun, the solar energy, using wind, on land as well as offshore wind. New Jersey is known for that, is trying to create that. And then you have also trying to use energy efficiency and shifting the load. So batteries play a very important role in the life of a regulator, in the life of any user, in that you can put it in your electric car. It's a battery that you can store and you can drive 100, 200, 300 miles. And then you have the storage, so that way when the sun is there shining, you can produce the solar energy and use that to charge your battery, and then you can use that when the sun is not available. Similarly for wind, you could do that. So the storage has become very important, because people, when you move away from coal and nuclear and other plants, when you're trying to move away, then you need to be able to store the
Thank
energy.
you, Upendra. Let's please try to limit this for 2 minutes maximum. We have lots of questions. Okay? This is
I just want to explain, because
I
think,
understand.
the important thing is that you have to understand, and you have to put it in proper context.
Yes.
Otherwise, it won't make any difference.
Harry?
Yes, I think the panelists covered the types of storage, but I'm going to talk about primarily the solar technology here, the solar energy. So we have about 100,000 terawatts of sunlight can create that much of energy on this planet, but only 600 terawatts can be, because of the land size, oceans and all, only that can be on a single day. And we need about 27 terawatts of power to run this world. on a single day. So if we can capture the sunlight and convert that into energy and store it and deploy it to various purposes, to transportation industry or anything, that's what I think we're going to talk about today, to see how efficiently we could produce, store, and deploy, and so that the fossil fuels can be eliminated over a period of time or reduced to reduce the carbon emissions and also save this planet for future generations. Any 1 degree centigrade increase in the temperatures, the oceans are going to rise because the snow and ice is going to melt, and we're going to have floods, a lot of catastrophe for the livelihood on this planet. A lot of integration here. It's impact investing. That's what I'm driving at. So let's talk about it.
Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you very much.
So he made up my time. See, that's how it works.
All right.
I agree.
Alright.
Somebody's gonna make up the time.
Yeah. We're trying to. All right. So there is a lot of growth here, and there is an increasing need for data storage and other storage. Will we be able to keep up with the demand? I mean, and where are the people investing the most? Energy?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest, I see both sides, even while he was talking and I was understanding what he's saying even on the digital storage. After listening to him, I realized how much, we are storing both, right? I mean, both sides of the world of the storage, it's a high demand, right? It's not just about energy. It's not only about, the electrical data. I mean, think about it. You use your Facebook, that has to be stored somewhere, the data. You use your phone, you use your text message, WhatsApp, everything gets stored somewhere. Storage, at the end of the day, is where everything begins, right?
True.
So,
the question
even
is,
for
will
energy.
we be able to keep up with that demand?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
of
we're
course.
going to find solutions. And as of yet, today,
We're
we
going to
have
find
found
solution, but did we already find any solution?
Yes, we already did.
Okay.
Right? So, but it's taking a long time to make those implementations. So, meaning why it's taking so long is because the fact that we have to educate a lot more people. Mm-hmm. People need to be educated. Can we stay up with it today? Yes, we can. It's just a lot more money has to be injected into these businesses, and a lot more education has to be put in. That's my opinion.
That's a great.
Right. Well, you're seeing the effect on the manufacturers as well. So there's so much demand for chip-based or SSD storage, non-movable or magnetic storage, but yet Intel's first quarter was down 12%. Mm-hmm. Because they're reinvesting in the R&D at this point to try to get to that next level of storage and that next level of processing power. So sometimes you'll see the companies are starting to, invest in themselves essentially to overcome these obstacles. I mean, in another couple of years, half of the people on the planet will have a smartphone, and 57% of the planet is already on the internet. So it's only the matter that we can or cannot get to them based on where they are, but eventually they will all be on, and all of their data will need to be stored as well. So a lot of these companies are working on this right now, such as Cisco and Intel and others, and they will probably be at the forefront with IBM and several other companies on as far as how we distribute all of this, how we make this all available, which is what Google and Amazon are also doing with their cloud, making it more publicly accessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the most exciting thing that is happening is that we're trying to combat climate change. And when you look at it, one of the major contributor to the carbon and other greenhouse gases is transportation. Mm-hmm. So we have this 4-cycle engine called automobile engine that's designed 100 years ago, has not really been improved that much. And so when you take the transportation and move it into electric vehicles, electric transportation is going to be such an important thing. If you look at the European Union nations, they're all looking at by 2050, 2040, they wanted to eliminate all the gasoline run automobiles. So I think electrification, that requires battery, and battery means that you need charging. And so there is the whole sequence of things are going to happen. And also energy, as I said earlier, energy, if you use it or you lose it. So you need to make sure you store it so that way you use it when you need it. I think that is where the storage technology has a great potential, that there's going to be an opportunity for, right now it's lithium ion technology, there could be something else in the future. It could be xenon oxide, who knows? Some new technologies are coming, so there is great potential for research and development in the storage technology, so that way not only you can electrify transportation, but also you can provide affordable electricity for all the families around the world.
Very good point. Thank you very much.
So I think you asked two things. One is what are the challenges and basically the investment opportunities at the same time. So there are two things here, right? We're talking about storage technology for the data component, and another one is energy storage.
Yes.
So we are actively about 3 billion people using some sort of internet or a smartphone, and on an average about 1.7 megabytes of data they need to store somewhere. For that, we don't have enough capacity, and the way it is growing every day, for the last 2 years, have collected about 90% of data compared to all other data that we had over a period of time. So the amount of demand that you're going to have for the data storage and the back office, servers and all of that, that requires power on top of it.
Yep.
And you need to have uninterrupted power for running those data centers. That requires some kind of storage technology. That's one thing. And the next thing is, as Upendra was mentioning about the climate change, this is more of an impact investing. Somebody is looking for an insurance companies look for a steady state income. It's like a fixed income for their investments. It's a stable income over a period of 10, 20 years. And these are the kind of things, very capital intensive investments, and those are the companies will be seriously looking into investing in building the storage technologies and data centers and all these things. I think there's a great opportunity because we have just scratched the surface of what is needed in terms of storage technology. I think in the lithium side, we have about 1.5 or 2 terabytes of storage so far, but there's about 100 terabytes of storage maybe needed. So imagine the scale that we need to meet the demand. So California just mandated about close to 2 terabytes of storage.
Yeah.
New Jersey requested by 2021 about 600 megawatts of storage. So there's a long way to go. This is the very beginning of this space. And there's a lot of investment opportunities as well as challenges in researching to reduce the cost significantly so that it makes more affordable.
Yeah.
So you really believe the two major sectors are energy and data? So this is really like the bulk of the industry. Okay. So for the energy, for example, Himanshu, what are your top 3 growth strategies to expand your footprint in the energy sector? I mean, do you have any key differentiator, within your solution, your product? Is it really the right time right now to invest in the energy sector? And if so, which ones are the countries that need this the most?
Sure. So,
sorry, too many questions into one, but I'm trying to keep.
No, that's fine. To answer that question for you, we're very small in size. I already explained that to everybody, that we're comparing to other people. We're very smaller in size, weight, and also the life cycles, right? You got to remember something in the storage world. How do you differentiate what's the best battery? Mm-hmm. And those are the 4 components. Anybody that knows that industry, that the size, the weight, and the life cycles, and the cost. Those are the 4 things, right? So when we talk about size, why is size such a big differentiator? It's because the amount of power that you want to store in a smaller footprint, because these are going to either go in your house or on a building or outside of a building. So you want a smaller footprint, so you don't have to use up so much land to cover up. The weight matters because we want to make sure that we can transport that power, because that's how it's going to differentiate us from the biofuels, meaning as in gas or diesel. That's highly used because it's easy to transport. So everybody buys it. It's like, hey, you know what? I can transport if I'm here. I can buy it and get it and move it around. So if you could do the same thing with energy, then people would not want to go in that direction.
Very smart.
Right? And then the other side of it, the weight. Well, if you buy a vehicle or electric vehicle, let's talk about Tesla. If their battery was 3 times lighter, Their car can go 3 times, well, I wouldn't say 3 times, but at least a lot longer in distance. So the weight, size, and the cost is all these things are going to matter. And if you can fix those, if you can find the right math for it, you're going to be the successful key.
Fantastic.
And yes, it is the right time to invest into this industry because it's the beginning of the industry. And like Harvey said, where the numbers are starting to rise, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look back 3 years, 4 years ago, storage industry was nothing.
Yeah.
Today, I mean, LG has invested $1.2 trillion. So that's a pretty big number in 3 years. So in 3 years, we talk about just New Jersey, California. New Jersey and US is not the only world that really is using this component. A lot of countries are waking up and saying, you know what, instead of putting major power infrastructure lines, let's fix it now. Let's put in the microgrids now. Because that's when you're really spending the money, right? So like Africa. People don't realize how fast Africa is growing, but Africa is one of the fastest growing continents in the world.
That's true.
As population-wise goes. Well, where are they going to get their power from? They don't have any power. You guys, we're lucky to have power in this country. Look at Liberia. There's not a single power line in that entire country. They run on diesel generators, every single house. There's not a single street light in that country. This is where you do need to go because they're paying close to $4 a kilowatt. We're paying 11 cents when we're complaining. You go in there and you offer them $1 for a kilowatt, they'll still be happy. Look at your cap rate.
Amazing.
You get 90% cap rate.
I get it. Perfect.
Right?
Thank
This
you.
is where we kind of need to invest into and start educating and finding ways to put our money best to work.
We are at
Not be
the
afraid
cusp
to
of
go out there.
something very big happening, and we're at the beginning of it, like the internet, the internet years ago.
Just to
Yes,
continue
Elliot.
on what Himanshu started, for Tesla car or any of these electric vehicles, in 2010, the cost of the battery was about 48% of the thing. Today, it's about 36%. It is projected by 2025, it's going to be 18% of the cost of the car is for the batteries. So imagine if we're going to have half the price of the batteries. So the kind of demand that we need, people will be rushing to have battery-operated cars. So that's going to generate. We have only hardly about 3 million vehicles on the roads today, but the moment the price drops through the technology and innovation, the amount of cars that are going to be on the roads, that is another way to look at it. And he's talking about Africa also. When you have these cell phones, and before that we had landlines, there's so much of investment went into building these landlines for telephone operations in the US especially, whereas other countries which never built those landlines, they leapfrogged into the cell phones. They saved significant amount of money. And he's talking about Africa. If there is no transmission lines built, now they can get into this microgrids, produce the energy through wind or solar and store it and provide it that local without connecting to the grids. So imagine the amount of money they're going to save by not avoiding these transmission lines altogether. So that is the advantage I think this kind of technology is going to bring to the table and save money at the same time provide uninterrupted power supply.
Mm-hmm. Elliot, you want to add on that?
Yeah, I could comment from the technology side. We are pretty much the biggest consumer of power.
Yep.
Right? So within a couple of years, you're going to have 95% of internet traffic going to data centers. And the data centers will be the source of all that storage and all that
And again,
power
that's a
usage.
critical care power, right?
Right.
So just like hospitals, people don't realize that, you know how many people die because we lose power?
Well, this is
They don't tell people.
This is why my data center is on a hospital and a prison grid.
Yeah.
Because those are the first ones that are going to get power when the power goes out.
You're absolutely right, though.
Okay.
You're not wrong.
So, but I mean, it's the same thing on a personal level. It's, 5 years ago, you had to run to charge your phone, You had to always plug in your phone. Now you might be able to go a whole day or 2 days. That's because of the battery improvements in the energy industry. So they're all tied together. Eventually, we're going to be able to walk through a country like Africa and actually have 5G all the way across, and your battery won't even die by the time you get to the other side. So we all have to, work in concert to make this all happen.
And we see a huge industry in the hospital industry, meaning in the medical industry. You just imagine if you have currently those hospitals are backed up by diesel generators. How long does it take for those diesel generators to turn on when the power goes out? Do you think that patient who's on life support has that much time? No, they don't, right? And with batteries, you can do it within 5 milliseconds. That means the light doesn't flicker. That means everything that, if there's somebody doing an operation, if there's somebody on life support, those operations continue. It's just that when a patient dies from loss of power, they don't call it loss of power. They say, oh, he went in cardiac arrest, or this is what happened, and they call it that. They don't ever say that it was because loss of power. And this is that's one of the things that we're extremely targeting in the US market. Either the critical care power consumers like the data centers, where, if your cell phone, WhatsApp didn't work for 5-10 minutes, you'll be like, oh my God, WhatsApp is down, right? Well, that's because the data center's down. So you can't have the data centers down. So in order for the data centers not to be down, you need power continuously. Right. So again, everything starts from some sort of power, right? Even for your drinking water, look at what happened in Puerto Rico. We had to spend billions and billions of dollars on shipping bottled water. Well, why the heck didn't we just put in batteries to back up the power for the water plants? Then we wouldn't have to worry about it. But no, we tried to put a diesel generator there, and it failed as well, and we ended up having that problem. So again, there's ways to fix those problems. We have already been involved in Puerto Rico, for example, doing just a simple thing. The smallest clinic, we put in batteries, and now they're saving $80,000 on vaccines because they don't go bad because they have power so that the vaccines don't get into a certain temperature. To now they're also looking on the other side of the scale. Puerto Rico is the first country in our first state inside of the United States to really start looking at microgrid infrastructure. I don't know how many people know that, but that's the first state to actually look at it and say, we need micro stations here and make that work. Because they're already they're putting on the brand new power lines. They're already, the whole state basically was wiped out and left with nothing. So any of those places now, what they're doing is they're going in, and this is the right time to invest in those states where that they're already rebuilding. And if they're going to rebuild, they're going to rebuild with the new technology. They're not going to go backwards. That's for sure.
Yeah, electricity is essential. I think one of the important things is that to have a good quality of life, electricity is essential, because whether you want to charge your phones, or you want to have lights in a home, or you want to heat your homes, or cooking and all that. And when Hurricane Sandy in 2012, when New Jersey, 1.2 million New Jerseyans had no power for more than 14 days. And that's where the battery storage would have come into picture. The terminology, as a regulator, we provide reliable electricity, but when the power lines go down, then you want to make sure you bring it back up. That's called resilience. You want to have the resilience built into your grid. And so battery storage can actually help you not only continue when the power is not there, and as Hari talked about the microgrids, with the microgrids also, with the battery backup and all that, you can operate those things. For example, in rural parts of the New Jersey, let's say, they depend, when the power goes out, they cannot have the well water, they cannot pump the water, so the cows cannot have the water to drink. And the sewage backs up because of so there are a lot of things that need to be done. So the battery technology is going to be life-changing. I think that's the point.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Harry, you want to close on something?
Yeah, just to catch up on this, the rural area, we're talking about New Jersey, but rest of the world is a lot of areas are undeveloped, underdevelopment. So those are the kind of people that are trying to have a refrigerator for home to save their food and vegetables. And that kind of requirement is going to generate a lot of power requirement. So there's not enough power in those areas. There has to be production of power, and they don't have these grids to provide them power. This kind of technology produce, like a Triton Solar, for example, they can produce, store, and also enable them to use it. Those are the kind of companies. There's a lot of opportunity to invest.
Even for agriculture, farmers,
so
even
because
farmers.
you don't need to go to a grid, you don't need to go to government to get permission to get access to your power connection. You just set up your own homegrown system in
That's
place. Right. I think I was reading, I think Himanshu was mentioning, California mandated by 2021, all the new homes must have self-sustainable power arrangement solar or wind, whatever way you produce and you store and you consume. You don't need to
correct.
connect to a grid. So every country is looking into this. There is a lot of legislations are already in place. But more than that, saving this planet by avoiding the carbon emissions is
That's
more
correct.
important, because otherwise by 2100, there's a lot of extinction will happen on this planet. Beyond the survival, you need to look into.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to make one more point. I
Please.
think when you look at battery is an asset, right? And right now the battery is considered used as a stationary source. And we have Shihab Quran in the audience, is from Power Edison Company. He's promoting the concept called mobile storage, wherever there is a need for storage, you can move it there. I think that application will be not only good in the United States, but also the rural areas around the globe where there is a need, you can move them. So that way, most of the time these assets are used 25% of the time. This way you can extend and better use and optimize the assets use.
Okay. I'm going to throw all these questions, technology questions. I want to go to the real core of the things. Okay? I'm a money guy.
Now he's really going to get us on the rapid.
Money solves lots of things. And brain and money, that's lethal, if you have both. So let's close this chapter on all what you know. You definitely know your stuff inside out and all the challenges. Really comment for. Now, let's form a company, an LLC, where you are the directors of this company. We're going to move your skills from technology, expertise skill to money skills. You have been allocated $1 billion to disrupt, fix everything in this industry, to make it to your advantage, to make money, to disrupt, to piss off a lot of people, and to create real wealth. We're moving from theory to action. A lot of people talk, professors, theory, we will do this, we'll do that. This is all crap. Let's move this, translate this into action. You have $1 billion at your disposal, you're all equal partners. You have this LLC. How would you don't have to think before you answer, how would you use this $1 billion to create a $10 billion company worth,
I'll take it.
I'm sorry?
I'll take it.
Of course you take it. to create.
I can't take it. I work for the government.
I was about to say, I would love to see how his answer was going to be on that.
You have to resign.
I'll take his share.
You will have to. No one will give you this kind of money. Resign. This is it.
Resign.
So how do we translate this? Given your expertise, given you knowing what works, what fails, how do you do here to maximize shareholder value and to create a massive company that's going to be disruptive, that's going to fix a lot of things, that's going to go under the skin of the big players? Tell them, who are these guys, who are disrupting everything? This is the key. This is what we like to do at the Financial Policy Council, is monetizing every asset class. Now that we know what your company does, and you definitely know what it does, or what the industry does, how do we monetize this? How do we create wealth? This is what the people here are here to know, to learn. Okay, I learned about storage technology, you store this. Okay, how do we make money? This is not, I'm going beyond that.
I get it.
How do we make money? So each one of you, talk about this. I'm sure you have differences of opinion. That's fine. If two people agree on everything, one of them is not needed. So that's my philosophy. So please go ahead, Himanshu, start. $1 billion to really make a huge impact. And you know what? After that, 5 years we're talking about. You can retire or you can kill yourself. Go ahead.
He's already doing a
Because
decision.
of failure.
Okay, so what I would do with the billion is, in our company, we would go after, like I said earlier, countries where...
Like specific, what countries?
Okay, so Honduras, example. South Africa, Africa, all the continent of Africa, some of the parts of South America, like Brazil. You'd be very surprised what is the cost of power in these countries. But do they have the resources? Do they have the money? Yes. If they're already spending $2 a kilowatt,
Okay, so you would go to these countries. What would you do there? Be specific, please.
so
The
we would
devil
go
is
ahead
in
and
detail.
set up battery storage along with solar panels and then generate the power at a cheaper rate and sell it back to them. But again, be clean energy, right? And stabilize the power industry itself in the country.
It's basically an arbitrage.
That's correct.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're going to have to go against the power companies there because they're not going to like us when we're saying we'll sell power at half the cost.
So that's one. What other? This is how would you allocate this? Each one will allocate it differently. How would you allocate part of the $1 billion?
How would I allocate it? I would allocate it towards more of creating infrastructures in those countries. So my theory is not, hey, let's go build a mega factory like Tesla did in one country and then start shipping it all over the world. My whole concept is, and this is why most countries, presidents and governments love us, is because we go in, we set up infrastructure in their country, create the jobs. So that way you're not creating any kind of conflicts with, the other power companies and how you can overcome them. Go ahead and put the infrastructure in that country itself. Let's go ahead and put an assembly plant there. So we create jobs. If we create jobs, they can't fight us on it, right? So these are the ways we would go in and assist.
How much would you allocate towards that?
I would allocate a majority of my money towards at least 40% of my money towards that, and then the 60% I would allocate it towards mainly into setting up our own power plants and selling back the power to those who want to buy the power at a cheaper rate, to be honest. Because we would not want to buy the power at a cheaper rate, right, at that point.
How would you think, what do you think the local governments would react seeing this outside force coming and destabilizing everything and eating their lunch?
So let's just put it
You have
this
to
way.
think about that too.
Sure, and I'll explain that. The big challenge on those, like I just told you, if you're creating jobs there and you're bringing your assembly plant there, believe me, I've been in front of a lot of government officials. The minute I say I'm bringing jobs and I'm going to allow the assembly plant to be there, they're on board. They don't want the Chinese. Right now, these countries are the ones that are getting diesel generators from China. I mean, come on, what's going to be better, right? Buying diesel generators from China or building my product in their country and creating a stable job industry?
I think you should take it even further with them, negotiate a deal with them whereby I put $1, you put $1 too, government.
Of course, that's going to be there, right? They're going to have to give us some sort of, tax incentives. They're going to have to give us land. They're going to have to give us quite a bit of things where open imports, allowing us to transport money out of the country. So those are things that are going to be in place for sure.
And you think your dollar will have a bigger kick in the butt than in the underdeveloped countries than in the developed ones?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You think that your dollar will be worth more in Africa and these countries than other places?
Yeah, so Ziad, the reason I say that is because it's very simple math.
Of course.
Right? You can't start anything without power. So you need the power.
Okay.
You want to drink water, you got to have power.
I get it.
If you want to do anything, you got to have power, right? If they're going to get power and they're already paying $2 per kilowatt in certain countries. I even know some countries, like people don't realize it, but if you go to U.S. Virgin Islands, I know the owners of Sandals, it costs them almost nearly $4 a kilowatt.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
We could just go there and we pay 11 cents here. So, if you're generating these power at like 12, 15 cents, and you're selling it at even $1 when they're paying $4,
It's a huge arbitrage.
it's a
huge arbitrage.
you're already breaking the component there.
Thank you. Elliot.
I see our two industries really almost going in opposite directions, whereas, we started with technology where we were setting rules but not necessarily regulations, whereas the power industry is heavily, heavily regulated and a monopoly, basically, which are both the enemy of profit. So if our industry is going more towards where people are not storing their own data and they're putting more data in the hands of the cloud, whereas in the energy, I think it should go in the other direction.
I get you.
In other words, energy independence. So if you sold the right to not have to pay this power company, this only power company that you could choose, you have no choice. You pay the power company that's in your neighborhood. You have no way of choosing another way of generating your energy. So I think if you created a way where you can get away from a monopoly, get away from the regulations, generate your own energy and maybe even share it within your neighborhoods and make energy independent by the people, not by the corporations. So you're generating your own, using your own, you're not paying whatever rate
Correct,
that they
but
want to charge you.
again, that's if you have the infrastructure there, right?
Correct.
So, example, like go to Liberia, they don't have the infrastructure.
Right.
There is no law there that says that you can't be independent. They're already independent. They're using their diesel generators to run their homes, and that's why it's costing them nearly $4 per kilowatt, because the fuel is costing them that much money.
Right.
Right,
The
so-
difference is they're using energy to pump water. We're using energy for the 37 devices we have plugged in our house. So we are much larger consumers of energy.
No, we are.
So I think if you make people independent, even in this country, not that you don't
Oh, no,
diversify
I'm
in
not,
other
I'm not
countries,
disagreeing with you on that at all.
you could still make money in other countries in the scarcity.
How
of it.
would you how would you reconcile the two strategies? They're two very different strategies. You guys are a perfect hedge, you know. So that's what it looks like. You guys are a perfect hedge. Exactly the opposite. So how would you reconcile this, Elliot, given the decisions that, as your partner, Himanshu wants to take? You, Elliot.
Hey, he's talking to you.
Me?
Yes.
That he wants to take? Well, he can run the Africa division.
Done.
I'll live in Greenwich.
Because I'll have a higher profit margin now. See, again, Elliot, the way I'm looking at it is, in America, we have a demand and we have a need. But at the same time, we have a choice.
True.
Educating the people here will become a very big, long process of education process.
I don't
In
think
those
the
countries in
education would take
Africa,
that
they don't
long.
have a choice.
I think if
You don't need to
given-
educate them. They already understand it. I need power. Here's power.
I got to
think,
jump in here. You are thinking with your heart. You got to think. He's
Yeah.
talking
No,
about
no, I'm
pocketbook.
not. Listen.
No, imagine how hard it is to collect money from Liberia. You got to go through the World Bank and all that. You're not going to
I'm
get
not-
the
I'm not
money.
talking about going after-
stability. There is stability. The governments are not very stable, and you got factions fighting each other. You're going to put our company like that? I don't think I'm going to allow that.
Right, in America,
okay,
you-
With $1 billion, you can do right here. Roll back 100 years ago, the big Auto 3 makers, what did they do? Lobbied the government, had billions of dollars invested in building the highway structure. All you have to do is lobby the government, provide the ITC, investment tax
Guys-
credit, for the batteries and all that, and also create infrastructure.
Hold on, I'm just going to answer that question real quick. Guys, you guys are trying to talk about lobbying the government. We don't need to. It's already there.
No, it's
The United
not there.
States
It's
already
not
has
there.
it where you can be off grid on your own.
I think there's
Yeah,
two
but it's
sides
not,
to the
not
topic.
every state, it is mandatory to have battery storage.
It's not mandatory. You're absolutely right. It's not
passed a law,
mandatory, but-
you got to make sure all the 50
Wait.
states.
Stop this. This is getting heated. It's good.
It's a real boardroom.
Hey, you said to get heated. Now we'll get heated.
I like it. I like
You
it.
said $1 billion. Now we're all getting heated.
Yeah, okay, hold on. I understand. So it's a perfect hedge here. It's very different. You come in as a regulator.
But I'm a businessman now.
I understand.
I'm not a regulator.
Wait.
Regulator, I say go away. My job is to say go away. Don't bother
He's
me.
resigned already.
I'm happy you gave up on your government job.
I got $1 billion with the 4 other guys.
I like that.
Happy. I'm very pleased you gave up on your government
Hey, we
job.
live in a capitalistic society.
And now
What do you
you've
want?
turned into a killer capitalist. I love it. Love it. Okay. So having said that, but given your background as a regulator, what do you think the regulators are going to do to stop you? You are now a menace, 4 of you, as $1 billion. You know how the sick regulators think. What would you advise your partners to do to stay on the right side and to avoid being in the, in the crosshairs of the regulators? This is where your background comes very handy. They're lucky to have a guy like you, because 4 businessmen without a lawyer/regulator in the middle is a bit risky. So what would you advise them to do?
No, I think, slow and steady wins the race. You don't go right into saying that you got to do all these things. You say, step by step, we have to do this thing and earn the confidence of the regulators, so that way, not only regulators, legislators, we need to make sure they're on board with our plan, how we are going to invest in the infrastructure, how we're going to make this country, the quality of life for all the people better. So if we can sell that thing, I think...
But hold on. It's easier said than done. A lot of the people in government, and I know that, will stop things happening, even if it does good for their country. They don't give a hoot.
Yep.
because money is not coming in their pockets and they're losing power.
Right.
They're losing power to a new group ascending here,
So
very educated. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. You have to think this way. People, not all people are nice. There's some very bad people out there. You have to outsmart them. You have to outsmart everybody. Either buy them, intimidate them, bully them, or whatever it takes to win. That's my strategy.
No, that's not always the case.
Yes, it always works. You haven't worked enough in
You
countries.
bribe them, you go to jail,
No,
right?
no,
You
no.
bully them, you get harassment.
No. You don't know what these big billionaires are do to get into these countries. No, this is what you taught in school. Yeah, okay, we have to do that. By professors who pontificate what I was saying before.
No, but they do
This
it.
is real life.
No, I understand. They do it, how do they do it? They don't do it directly. As a CEO, you don't go and talk to the regulator. You send your goons, right?
Sure they do.
Your lobbyists, called lobbyists.
Same thing, right?
You send them there,
Okay.
do the dirty work for you.
The one
That's
that
what you got
takes
to
the
do.
biggest bribe becomes the senator.
Yeah, right.
Okay? That's how it works.
Of course.
So you have to save 25% for the lobbyists and the lawyers, so
Okay.
you can do what you
So we're
can
going to
to
allocate
disrupt.
now a percentage of the budget for the lobbyists, etc. Good. So we're starting to think
I have
loud
a
here.
question.
We're going to allocate 10% of the $1 billion, which is $100 million, to the lobbyist and etc. Good. Okay. Harry,
Yes, I think
we're getting somewhere. Look, we're not going to resolve this in 5 minutes, but at least we're getting somewhere. We think like business people
Yeah,
here.
I want to bring back the original question you had. You're giving me $1 billion, and you said where you're going to invest and
Yeah.
how you're going to disrupt the
To
market.
disrupt, fix, make a difference, and make a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. So there are two major technologies that I would like to invest into this area. One is the hydrogen fuel cells. The other is the lithium ion battery
Storage.
technology. Those are the two. There are two things we need to do. One is I would like to allocate about 25% in each of these areas of the $1 billion, hydrogen and lithium, because I want to diversify this. At the end of the day, I want to be safe and make money too. Then about 25% on the production side of the energy, and another 25% I would like to have on the deployment side, going to various countries, and I would like to set up these grid, microgrids, so that I want to make it a market-driven power than regulated by this
Brilliant.
big utility
Yep.
companies.
Yep.
Right, that's what I want to, because we want to unshackle from this control of the utility
Exactly.
companies. And just to avoid the regulations and all these people, in Paris it is mandated that every government has to work towards keeping the temperatures below 2 centigrade degrees to rise. It is mandated by all the governments, and about 125 countries signed that. So to start with, where there's a mandate, who signed this mandate, I would like to go and propagate this. And most of them are underdeveloped emerging countries, and poor countries. And that's where the real need and real market is, and they are paying enormous amount of price for power. If I can give them a cheaper, low-cost alternative at the same time, keeping the temperatures under control and saving the planet. That's what I'm going to start. That will go a long way with $1 billion.
Brilliant.
And we can make a difference in many lives.
Love it. Thank you very much.
I wasn't just saying, yeah, give it.
This is getting exciting here. All right, so I'm done for now with questions. So let's have the audience, any questions you have. Those on this side can ask their question on this mic. So, yep, you introduce yourself, your question. And those on that side can go to this mic over there and ask their questions.
So my question is for Himanshu.
Yes.
You were talking about, now you got $1 billion to spend. Why would you not develop a new model, like call it power as a service, kind of like what data centers do? Amazon hosts, 10, 20,000, 100,000 websites. They just provide the infrastructure. Somebody else provides the content. So here the content would be the power producer, someone like, let's say, a solar power producer or a wind power producer. You could offer them a storage solution where they pay as you go. And you install the storage infrastructure at a solar farm. And as they use it per kilowatt hour or per gigawatt hour, there'd be some usage charge. And you could now create a completely new business model that hasn't existed so far. Power as a service model. You're basically going to finance that infrastructure through easily financeable lease financing, and then you provide that as a service to the power producer. In this case, whoever's got a PPA, whether it's a fossil fuel or, in this case, most likely would be renewable producers. And you offer that as a turnkey model, power as a service kind of model, pay as you go, where you install the infrastructure and the microgrid, but the power producer has no capital expense, and you just basically charge usage fees as they go along. Would that be kind of model that might make sense if you're using $1 billion?
Yes, and just so you know, when I meant that, go in and put these plants into these countries, that's exactly what I was trying to kind of divert to you, but he wanted me to be within that 2 minutes of explaining how I'm going to make the model. Again, and thank you, but I wasn't only talking about just Liberia. I was talking about African continent, right? So when you talk about African continent, South Africa's got a lot of money, guys. Unfortunately, let me tell you, all the diamond money is there. So we already, like an example, right now, currently, we're doing business with Morocco, the King of Morocco. We have a JV with them. It's not my money. I'm only providing the infrastructure there. And they're gonna go ahead and start doing all those things, right? So again, what I mean by that, by expanding and spending my 60% into these countries, is going in and either providing a pre-purchase power agreement or setting up solar farms, providing the power at a cheaper rate. And if they don't give me the money, fine, we just take our equipment and leave. Go to another country.
So you're talking about a portfolio of startups, different separate LLC in each one of those countries mentioned.
That's correct.
That's how you diversify your risk. That's how you insulate each company from the other.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. Please go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Mike Tedesco. My question is purely technology in terms of, we're talking about battery storage, we're talking about data storage. I understand battery storage has a life that eventually will die, and data storage has a lot longer life, like SSD drives and things like that, non-volatile memory. What makes the physical, technological connection between the two?
Good question.
Well, who is the smartest man in the world? Bill Gates. Because Bill Gates did not invent an operating system, he invented licensing. He invented the right to sell access to data or to networks or to the internet. 98% of the market is run on his software. That is your portal, that is your way of getting to the other side. So we do require power to operate those things. But for long-term storage, the technology industry is a little further ahead than the energy industry. So while you're still trying to generate more power with less space and less equipment, we're generating more and more data with less space and less cost, and it's permanent. So whereas you might have a battery that may live for 5 years, our data is going to live forever. Your bank account will always be there. So they both kind of feed on each other. It's a necessity.
You can't say that it's going to be there forever because it's still an electronic device, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, technology is stored on magnetic media. It's stored on glass. It's stored on many different mediums. So they could long outlive society and power in general, and people could be figuring out how to read them.
What are you going to do? How are you going to
now.
access that data if you don't have power?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's the nexus.
There's
That's the
an
nexus.
interdependency.
That's kind of where it's going to come down to.
There's an interdependency
right?
on the
If you don't have power, you're not going to access that data.
But the only connection I was trying to make is, like Elliot says, the storage of data has to do with magnetic array, whereas the storage of power has to do, whether it's lithium ion or whatever, has to do with capacitance, which eventually erodes. Just was wondering where the two, maybe the two does meet at one certain point in time, and I'm just trying to make that connection because that could be fundamentally interesting.
Well, it's right here in your pocket.
It is. But it still requires a battery.
Right.
So you guys
this is where they meet.
Right.
This is where, when they're generating the power and we could walk around with the power and we could use the technology, That's really where the two industries meet.
I'll give one more good example. Like most of you are familiar with this cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin they allocated for certain coins for mine. They can mine and then get it. In order to mine, they need to have different nodes to compute and to break that code, and it requires a lot of computing power, which requires servers and all, and that requires power, uninterrupted power. So I think that's another example where
I
they
get you.
get connected.
I get you.
Yeah.
Can I answer one thing
Thank
for
you,
him?
Michael. Huh?
You mind if I answer one more thing for him?
Go ahead.
So one of the other things that we are working on is taking nuclear waste and turning them into batteries that last 100 years. We're already in R&D in that, 60% already completed. So we're already on that footpath.
Okay.
Hi. This question's for
Harry.
Harry. Yeah. So my name is Steve Anglin from We Solar CSP. We build utility-sized solar power plants, and one of our products is storage. I've heard no one speak about thermal storage tonight. You've basically spoken about lithium-ion and.
I talked about ice.
You did, yes. Okay, I'll take that back. But this morning I was in Washington, D.C. I had a meeting with the president and CEO of the Energy Storage Association, Kelly Speaks Blackman, and what she told me is that there was an explosion in one of the lithium-ion batteries a couple of weeks ago.
Arizona.
Yeah, and in Arizona, APS, right? So, they've basically stopped the whole lithium-ion battery. It's sort of like the 737 Air Max. There's a big investigation. There's lots of people looking at that storage. Everyone talks about 90% of the market is looking at lithium-ion. What we do is thermal energy storage, which is a lot cheaper than lithium-ion.
Please, let's stick to your question.
So the question
not a
is,
story.
Why? Okay, the question specifically is, tonight we're talking about storage. No one's talking about thermal energy storage. And so my question is, everyone's talking about other types of storage, but they're not talking about this particular type. And why is that? Because it's a lot more cost effective and than lithium-ion, which is actually causing a lot of fires and exploding.
Yeah, that again, as Upendra was mentioning, that several types of storage, pumping the water to the higher levels, and there's a flywheel and all those things,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And thermal storage is another, and hydrogen fuel cells and all these things exist. It's a question of cost effectiveness and also portability of these solutions to various applications that we need to have. That is the main driver. For example, Tesla, probably your thermal solution may not work for a vehicle running on the road. So we need to have different types of...
I can actually help in that and answer that question.
From a cost perspective, it's $1 million per megawatt for a
but you know what? A lithium for 1 megawatt is nowhere near $1 million.
I'm sorry?
A lithium-ion battery storage for 1 megawatt would be somewhere around $400,000 to $300,000.
Okay, so I'm not sure you got that number from, but I was at the storage conference in Arizona last week.
It's
about, I can give it to you tomorrow.
It's about $1 million, give or take, for 1 megawatt.
We sell our 10 kilowatt battery for $400,000.
So then that's good for you. You're below the market. That's great. But most of these companies are selling, APS is selling their batteries for $1 million per megawatt.
Listen, stop this. This is not a debate between you and him.
The question was, he's answering my question.
He answered the question. Thank you very much. We're set. Next.
Okay, let me see if I can provoke you into a new business model beyond what you've been talking about. The gentleman over there mentioned something about, networked power and that kind of stuff. I actually wrote a book that has some of that in that. If you want, I'll send you the book.
I'll take it.
Okay, sure.
I know my knowledge.
Okay, so what we're talking about, and what we're fortunate to be talking about, is wealth. What we're storing is wealth. We have energy, we store it, that's wealth. We have data, we love our data, that's wealth. Ziad has bunches of money, he stores it in a bank, that's wealth. I mean, we're talking about things that are valuable to us. Right. Okay, so when do we get to the point where we start treating it as wealth? Where it becomes...
It's a very good point. Go ahead.
Where this becomes actually a currency. Okay, think about getting this so small that one of your friends in Liberia, which is
George. President named George.
Right.
Yeah.
And a guy has an extra $20, so he buys a solar panel and a battery, and he stores power in the battery. Then he goes and exchanges it for goods and services. It becomes a currency.
Sure.
And you know, I mean, maybe the actual currency in Liberia is failing, so you have a fourth world, essentially failed state, but you still have people making money because they can take their solar panel.
Okay, so what's your question, Tim?
I just want to comment on that. When do we get to that? When do we get to that business model?
It is truly happening as we speak. For example, when you produce more energy than you consume, it is already sold to the grid, and they are making money out of it. And there's a lot of security tokens coming out of power companies, the startups, like actually.
Yes.
So they're
But I will
already
take your book.
tokenizing. They're already tokenizing these things.
I will take your book. Knowledge is always great.
Yeah. They're already tokenizing. It became a tradable token now for power and excess power.
And that's where kind of purchase power agreements come in, right? It's called PPA, purchase power agreement. You're kind of doing the same similarity, right? You're generating power, and then you're selling it to whoever has the demand, right? So, but you're just doing it on such a large scale that you kind of, people don't understand what purchase power agreement means. PPA means that you're basically selling it to the grid, and if you, say an example, you have a demand of 10 kilowatts, and I have that 10 kilowatts, I can sell it to you for whatever dollar amount that I'm requesting. And if I don't want to sell it to you at that, if you can't afford that price, then I won't sell it to you. It's the same thing, right? But essentially, you're up front, you're making that model, and you're saying the next 20 years, you will buy my power at $2 or $1 or 20 cents or 10 cents or 15 cents. And that model has been working all the way across the board, right? Look at India. I mean, they're in gigawatts now doing the purchase power agreements, right? So these are the places where we kind of want to start targeting and try to build those type of infrastructures. If we can go into these countries and create these purchase power agreements, and there's a lot of ways to back them. I understand our friend said, hey, what are you going to do in Liberia where there's no stability? Well, this is where you got to kind of get into the financing part. This is why we're here. This is why we're talking about it. How to figure out how do we finance those people. The way you finance them and say is, hey, if you're using 10 kilowatts, it's costing you $2, fine, I'll give it to you at $1. Now my cap rate, what is it costing me? 15 cents? Fine, I'll pay it off much faster. So tomorrow, if he doesn't pay me, I'll just take the system and go somewhere else.
Thank you, Himanshu. Stan.
I've heard you discuss the various investment opportunities. If we were to give you $1 billion, I'm not going to give you $1 billion. But I have $100 million, and could you be a little more specific in who are the companies that you would invest in right now where the ROI over a period of 2 to 5 years would give me a greater yield than I could get anywhere else? Who are the cutting edge companies that are doing the work now where if I invested $1 now, I'd end up with $50 or $100 5 years from now?
Well, let's just put it this way. Right now, currently, not only our company, but there are plenty of other companies who are in the storage industry, right? If you look at any of the storage industry guys, they are giving you higher returns and cap rates, right? I mean, the cap rates are pretty up there. Like, example, if you you use our company, right? If we sell you the product at $5,000, we're giving you 50,000 kilowatt guaranteed warranted product. So if you're carrying that number and you're supplying these batteries, example.
You a publicly traded company?
No, we're not a publicly traded.
Then how can I invest in your company? If I want
we do have models. We can send you some of the models.
He's actually raising an offering.
My real question
Good timing.
Specifically,
Good timing.
Are there any publicly traded companies that you know of that if we were to
there's Tesla. You can go and invest into Tesla. They're publicly traded, but I don't know what their cap returns are.
Stan, I think you should have a private dinner with Himanshu and talk about this in private,
Okay. Well, if you want to invest in technology, I mean, there's plenty of well-known investments that you can make. There's Netflix, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's all the things that you see everyone using all day, every day. Yep. I mean, I have about a 357% return on Netflix. So, I mean, if you want to make an investment in a skyrocketing industry, you could do that. In the industry of energy, there are a lot of players, not all of them are public.
You should have another meeting with them too.
Target.
A private meeting with Elliot too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Trying
I'll be glad to have that
to roll some business, drum some business here. Yes. And this is the last question, guys.
Good evening. I'm Rand Marsh. I'm in natural resources. At the beginning of the evening, it was mentioned that there's not enough materials. There are material shortages in some of these industries, and that wasn't discussed further on, both in storage but also in batteries. We hear about both lithium is primary, but there are also some new battery technologies that are coming along, or any of the other storage technologies that have been mentioned here tonight. Where are the places where the market forces will start limiting your growth because of the inability to source the raw materials, and which raw materials would those be?
So this is the reason why earlier when he spoke, he asked me about the technology component. We're going towards nuclear waste batteries. So in the nuclear waste batteries, I think we have a lot of it, and the government will pay us to remove that nuclear waste. And that's the conversations that we're already having, right, with the state of California. Because our R&D facilities in California, we're already in that discussions on them paying some of the portions of our R&D, because we will be getting and removing and disposing the nuclear waste. Currently, we have no other way to dispose nuclear waste. So we're finding alternative solutions. We already have 6 generations of technologies in the battery that's not related to lithium batteries. So lithium, yes, there's a resource of problems, but that's what a good battery company does, is they go out and they find other solutions before you run out of those materials. Find another materials that can be built with your batteries. And that's kind of what we're doing.
I will add.
I can't talk about everybody else.
I will add a little.
Close it, please.
There are 4 different components in this battery technology. One is anode, cathode, electrolyte, and the separators. And that's where the main problem is this, getting these parts is one of the supply chain problem that needs to be addressed, and the cost has to come down, and a lot of R&D is happening in those areas to bring down the cost. Now it's about $200 per kilowatt.
Well, yeah, in the real world of manufacturing,
now it's coming down to about
yes.
$73 in the next 5-10 years or so. When that happens, the market will explode, but all these parts have to come together to make that happen, and there's a lot of things that happen.
Here's another problem. People think that lithium iron is shortage. There's no shortage of lithium iron. The shortage is in cobalt. It's in the metals. I mean, anybody who's in this business will tell you that the shortage is not in the lithium irons. The only reason why you think that there is a shortage is because all the Chinese are buying out all the lithium. They're smarter than us. They invested the money. They invested trillions and trillions of dollars into the lithium mines.
That's another discussion about the Chinese. Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we close it with you.
Okay. Through WhatsApp, I earned $1 million bugging Hari or Upendra or Patel. So I want to reinvest that $1 million. I want to become a billionaire in overnight. How can one of you tell me how you become a
doesn't happen, billion overnight. Overnight success is 15
quarter billion.
Doesn't happen.
But which one I want to invest with 5 of you?
Doesn't happen. Overnight success is 15 years.
Okay. I will take it.
For your information.
Or 20 years.
Okay, guys.
15 years minimum, yeah.
Listen, that was great. Thank you so much. Brilliant, insightful, heated.
You're bad news.
I love the heated part, yes.
He'll get us to fight against each other.
Really appreciate it. Our next event is July 17. Mark down your calendar. We'll be sending you invites. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great evening.